Once there was a land that flourished. People were happy, neighbours were content, and no one went without. But then things change. They always do. First it was the whisper of unrest on the border to the west. Then it was the reports that wells in the north were coming up dry. When there were rumours of ancient beasts returning to a forest that had been peaceful for years, the trouble couldn't be buried for much longer. The first sighting of a puka coincided with Princess Muriel's marriage to Lord Benedict, seventh son of Lord Henry of Sandler. Ancient texts were scoured, an old prophetess was consulted, and it could be denied no longer. Eris was in trouble. The prophecy so claimed that the land would be safe until the seventh son of the seventh son was born. The birth of this child would trigger a chain of dangerous events, but they would also ultimately save the day. Princess Muriel's carefully calculated political marriage had not been the success it had originally hoped to be. What had been taken as a preventative measure, based on the barest hint of a child's bedtime story, had backfired. She had to produce 7 sons of her own, and that's all that mattered. Murmurs of discontent showed when a poison filled the castle's water supply, but wasn't noticed quickly enough, so her mother died. Grief-stricken but still standing, she acted as monarch whilst her father was abed with a broken heart. Barely a year later, she continued to act as the face of her people when, still reeling from his wife's death, the king led the army in the sudden war to the west and was shipped back in a coffin not 3 months later. No, all that mattered was the fact that Princess Muriel was not yet with child. Queen Muriel, as she was now the ruling monarch, was only 19 when she was crowned, and so she was even younger when she was married. Scared of her husband or of the marriage bed itself, it is not clear, but it took almost exactly 3 years from their marriage night before their first child was born. Strong, determined and brave, Brendan had an army to control almost as soon as he could walk. As soon as he could be taken from his mother's breast, he accompanied his father to the front line of the war to survey an army that would one day be his. Whilst Brendan was going to war, Brodie was at the Queen's breast, and another 2 were growing inside her. Prince Benedict happily stayed away, his work for another 9 months dutifully done. Brodie was quiet to his older brother's commanding, cunning to his older brother's strong. Whereas his brother had been quick to pick up a sword, Brodie's small hands sooner reached for books, his chubby fingers tracing the delicate lines of maps. Her next son stretched her belly large at early days, and the Queen found herself flagging within the first few months, where she'd been able to rule until the final days with her first 2 sons. To keep appearances as normal as possible, she had her bed moved to the ground floor so she could move more easily between diplomatic meetings, unnecessary banquets, and the meets with her people that her advisers were all too eager for her to cease. It was soon obvious that Aidan and Kieran's futures would be at sea. Their favourite way to pass the time was travelling with their father, and they quickly became as much a fixture on his ship as the ship's cat. After the birth of her twins and no immediate announcement of her next pregnancy, rumours told that the Queen had barred the prince from entering her rooms. His appearance on the front line more often than at her side only added fuel to the fire. Fortunately, as the rumours began to transform into a worry that the Queen did not want to protect her people from the trouble she'd breathed into being, her fourth pregnancy was announced. It quickly became apparent that, where his brothers dreamed of war and travelling, Niall dreamed of nothing more than staying in the castle. Although he knew he would never inherit the throne, it never stopped him from being at his mother's side through meetings political and mundane. By the time the Queen was pregnant for a 5th time, the glow of motherhood had found home elsewhere. Pregnancy had become another duty that wore on her, and she only saw her husband when he visited her sons and happened upon her bed when he was needed. She felt as if she was less important than one of her people's livestock and less interesting than one of the women of the town. Ewan lived for plants and medicine. As soon as he could walk, he wobbled his way into the garden to follow the gardener around. He learnt what properties everything had in cooking before he began to experiment to see what use those same herbs could have in medicine. He eagerly awaited the birth of his brother, waiting for the day he could help and learn. but the day failed to come. 5 years passed with no word of a pregnancy. Fear became ingrained into the realm and devastation became more common than smiles. The whispers of the end became worse than before and turned into shouts of betrayal. The Queen worried herself sick and thin, with guilt at failing her people, worsened by her monthly bloods that were only broken by pregnancies that lasted no more than a few months. But no one could know about the pregnancy that left the Queen weeping into the early hours of the morning, because what if their 7th son had been lost already? Prince Benedict grew to loathe his wife's inability to carry a 7th son. All the time she couldn't conceive, he had to stay close enough to the castle to return every month to try again. As soon as she showed signs of pregnancy and he started to move further afield again, he was called back to her side once more. He couldn't head a war in these circumstances, and he couldn't teach his sons anything when he couldn't leave himself. Their time together was as brief as possible, the prince leaving the Queen's rooms as soon as he physically could, leaving her curled in on herself for the ladies to find. When the Queen was pregnant next, every precaution was taken. She was bedbound for months, with meetings confined to her chambers, and unnecessary worry was kept from her door. Her people did not see her for months, and had no idea that their Queen was ballooning with child once more. When sickness filled the castle, her advisers nearly gave up, but her stomach continued to grow. Her contractions began nearly 2 months before she usually gave birth. No amount of herbal remedies could stop them. The child was determined. In the heat of summer, in the middle of the night, Queen Muriel's quiet, anticipated 7th child was born, a girl, who was quickly passed aside in favour of the 7th son that almost immediately followed. It didn't matter what Conlan wanted, and it definitely didn't matter what he liked. Before he was even conceived of as an idea, it was prophesied he would save the world. He would be a brave soldier, a diplomatic prince, and a powerful wizard. Maybe it was too much to burden a young boy with, who, as a prince, already had the world watching him, but every minute of every single day of his life was scheduled because he only had 18 years to learn to save the world. When the Queen appeared in front of her people again for the first time in almost a year, with 2 children at her breast, celebrations were abound. With 18 more years of disaster in front of them, at least they could see hope on the horizon. It was the first time since the Queen Mother's death that smiles filled the realm, and celebrations were only doubled with the news that the 7th son of a 7th son had a younger sister. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Bryony and I'm one half of the Indecisive Readers. Today I am here to introduce you to my June TBR. This is for the Make Your Myth Take a Readathon, and for that readathon you basically follow a path to make yourself into like a fantastical character, so a character based on a like fantasy trope or the usual kind of characters you get in fantasy books. Before I go into my TBR for the readathon, just want to remind you that I am running a short story competition called The Chronicler's Quest, which invites you to tell a short story about your character, and I will publish it on the blog. It is open until the 1st of July, so you've got time to finish any stories or any side quests that you didn't initially know you were going to write about. You can enter as many times as you like, as long as each individual bit is no longer than, say, 5,000 words. The winner, if there are enough entries, will get a book of their choosing up to £15 from Book Depository. So it's international if it ships to you. I can't think what she's called, but Sophie, I will link her channel down below, is doing a giveaway herself, and she has the idea of if you're an English person doing it from like a local bookshop, and I quite like that idea, so if that's possible I will do that too. Before I introduce you to my TBR, I would like to introduce you to my character. So my character, despite being surrounded by water, is nothing actually to do with water. I don't have a crown, and so therefore I'm wearing a fairy crown and have like flowers on me, but my character is following the monarch path because she is a princess. She's also going off, there is a spider. She's also following the witch path because she has magical powers. She is Princess Aoife, and she is the 7th child of the Queen, who is married to a 7th son. this world is waiting to be saved by the seventh son of the seventh son. So when Aoife is born first, they just kind of shove her to the side, and then, because obviously no one is present at the Queen's birth, or very few people are present, they just tell the world that the son was born first and the princess was a happy accident. So the world depends on this seventh son of the seventh son prophecy, and I just have heard this kind of prophecy, this belief before, and hate it because it's sexist. But I know I'd also like to be like, well, if it was a seventh daughter of a seventh daughter, it would also be sexist. Or if it was, I don't know, I don't like it. I don't like kind of anyone being like based on as a prophecy, the world being like waited to be saved by someone. But I thought it would be interesting if it was the seventh child of a seventh child instead, and a prophecy originally said this and said it was child not man or child not boy, and said like magical person rather than wizard or warlock and like another masculine term. And so I'm basing a whole story on my hatred of sexism, which is great. I love it. Which is ironic because also like my favourite book ever is based on a seventh son of a seventh son, but it's not like he saves the day, it's just he happens to be extra magical because 7 is the magical number. In this story, the seventh son of the seventh son is meant to save the world. He's meant to be an amazing magician, wizard, and also great at like fighting and stuff. So his seventh son actually is very good at fighting, but the seventh child is the wizard. They learn some like fighting skills, but between the two of them, I haven't decided if it's like between the two of them or if the like wizard is the one that like really saves the day. They save the day. Also, the seventh son, because he is so much younger than all his brothers, has like a best friend that the court kind of picked up from an orphanage, and he's hung around for the rest of the days. And one day the princess discovers that he's not actually a he, she's actually a she. And they kind of were friends before, but formed like a more intimate's the wrong word, but a closer friendship from like this secret and the knowledge that only the other one knows. Then one day the princess invites the friend to a like royal party feast thing, but dressed as a woman, so she'll be like, just pretend you're ill and say you're my friend. And then she realizes that, you know what, she might actually like her. Spider, you can't come for me. So my primary paths are going to be the monarch path and the witch path, but if I get time I'm going to go and do some knight training or gladiator training, something in the warrior path, and potentially also go on a quest to go and see an oracle and maybe some pirates. I also have a couple of other characters I might like to investigate, but we're going to stick with Aoife for now because I've only got so much time in my day. Now I've introduced you to my character and her story, hopefully I will be publishing more about her during the week. I would like to introduce you to my TBR. And you! For each group of characters there are 4 individual characters, and each character has to complete 4 prompts to become their character. So for the monarch, the first prompt is to read a book with the Queen main character, and for that I'm going to read Matilda, Empress Queen Warrior by Catherine Hanley. This is actually a non-fiction book about the Empress Matilda, who is meant to be the Queen of England in like the 12th century, but because she's a woman that's not allowed, and she went to like France or something. I've got no idea, and so I'm really looking forward to reading this. I am regretting putting this as the first book on my TBR because whilst it's only about 294 pages, the writing's really small and I just don't know how long it's going to take me. I was thinking usually with non-fiction books I read like a chapter a night, but that's obviously not going to work, so I don't know. I will hopefully read it all quickly, or at least like maybe do my own 24-hour readathon early on in the week, because I know there's one every weekend, but if I do one early on I can at least give myself a head start. But anyway, yeah, I don't really know what this is about other than it's about a should-be queen. I hope it counts. It says queen on the cover and I'll be very disappointed if it doesn't. The next prompt is the same for all of the characters in the royal court, and that is to read a book with the royal colours on the cover. And so that includes red, purple and gold, and for that I will be reading A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas, which is the first book in that series. I am borrowing it from the library on loan, so I don't have a physical copy, but the cover does have red on it and a bit of silver, and I think it's set in like a court, maybe? It's got court in the title, it must be set in a court brand. This is about a girl, I think, who is fae or kills a fae, and as punishment gets sent to this, she kills a fae and gets sent to the fae court. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I don't really know a lot about it, I just know that a lot of people really like it. I have a feeling I should like it and therefore I want to read it, and when I saw that the audiobook version was available I thought, why not get it? I hope it's going to come in on time. It says it should be 3 weeks now, so hopefully by the time the readathon comes along it should be available. This is a very speculative TBR for TBR that can't change, but I want to read it and therefore I'm going to squeeze it in there because I will need to read it once it comes in. There's a bird on the deck. I'll need to read it once it comes in because you only get 2 weeks to read it after they come out, but I feel like it should be quite quick and I'll enjoy it, or at least I'll have read it. The next book on my TBR is to read the highest rated on your TBR, so you basically can put a poll up on Twitter or you can sort your Goodreads shelves by rating, and I have a Goodreads shelf for my physical TBR, but I thought I'd actually do it with my Kindle TBR because I kind of forget what ones are on there, so I feel like this would be a good way to get rid of some. The one I have chosen, luckily, or not the one I chose, the one Goodreads chose for me, was Hear the World Entire by Kaya Anwen Hayward, I think. This is a Medusa retelling and it's only 83 pages long, so great. I love the sound of that for a readathon where I'm trying to read as many books as possible. I actually wanted this to be the highest rated and I was going to put it as a poll on Twitter if it wasn't chosen here, but fate has worked out for me and I'm really excited to read it. Hopefully it'll be great and feminist and interesting, and I think it sounds great and I'm really excited to read it. It's been on my TBR for over a year because it was on my Amazon wish list, and then like I put out a tweet a while ago saying, does anyone know about it? And no one answered me and it was quite cheap, so I was like, let's do it. The final prompt to become a monarch, who, like, obviously my character is not a monarch because she's like the 7th or 8th in line for the throne, but she's like a princess, so it counts, is to reread a favourite, and for that I have chosen The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This was a favourite I discovered last year and it was really cute, really fun. It's about Tiffy and Leon who share a bed but have never met. Tiffy works during the day and sleeps at night, and Leon works at night so sleeps during the day, so they share the bed, share the flat, but never actually meet, and then they end up like leaving each other post-it notes and little notes and cakes and stuff around the house, and obviously fall in love through the post-it notes, and it's just so good. It's also really interesting because it deals with some really important themes such as emotional abuse, and it's handled really, really well. Whilst it's not like a short book, it's about 400 pages and it's really quick to read, and because I've read it before I know I can read it quickly. I have a physical copy of it here, but I also have it on my Kindle, and so I might be able to like switch between formats as and when I want to read them. Stepping onto the witch's path, your first prompt is to read a book including an animal, because witches obviously have their familiars. For this I will be reading 10 Things My Cat Hates About You by Lottie Lucas. This is a romance where the main character bases her romances on whether or not her cat likes them, and whilst the cat chases most people away, this time it's kept 2 people and now she's got to decide which one she likes. I am really excited to read it. It sounds like a really fun book. My friend actually recommended it for me in my recommendation video, and she hasn't read it, it was the one she picked for me, and it sounds so good. I really liked the film 10 Things I Hate About You, and so I feel like the inclusion of a cat is just gonna add to that fun. The next prompt for the witch is the same across all the sorcerers, and that is to read a book with a foiled cover, and for that I have chosen Ash by Melinda Lowe. You can see it shiny because it's blinding you already. I believe this is a sapphic Cinderella retelling, so Cinderella, but she falls in love with a fairy or I think it's a huntress, because I think there's this prequel to this called The Huntress, and I bought it years ago, probably when it first came out, and just never read it or read part of it, and got so not far in the book that I didn't realise it was sapphic, and maybe I would have read more sapphic books or more LGBT plus books before now if I'd realised this one was sapphic and I enjoyed it, but I didn't read it. But I have heard really good things about it. I've been wanting to read it for ages, and because it is Pride Month in June, I want to read as many LGBT plus books as possible. I don't actually have that many LGBT plus books on my actual TBR, but I have a lot that I want to kind of like jump into if I have the time, so I might quickly mention them at the end if I can think of what prompt they'd go with. So yeah, this is the foiled book for the witch, and I'm really excited to read it. It will be perfect for the Myth Take reads because obviously it is a fairy tale retelling and it's shiny. The next prompt for a witch is a magical battle, and this is a prompt that a lot of people have struggled with, I think, because a magical battle isn't something that's like explicit on the back. It's something that you kind of know once you've read it, and so it very much depends on recommendations or people who've already read the book. So I'm hoping this one counts, because if it doesn't, I'm not going to complete the witch's path. I'm just going to be like, oh, dipping it out, and that's fine. So for this I have chosen The Shadow Queen by CJ Redwine, which does also have a foiled spine. I am going to read the back because I don't know what it's about, but from the back I did get that there might be a magical battle, so let's just combine it in two. Lorelei, powerful enchantress, vengeful fugitive crown princess. She must kill the wicked queen who took both the Ravenspire throne and the life of her father. Irina, dangerous sorceress, ruthless manipulator, poisonous ruler. She must hold the throne, dispatching a dragon-shifting huntsman to cut out Lorelei's heart. But Ravenspire is rotten beneath Irina's dark magic, and the huntsman is at risk of losing his own heart to Lorelei. This isn't the one I was thinking of. This is the wrong book. Oh, I can't think what book it was meant to be. Okay. This sounds like a Snow White retelling without magic. There was one I was thinking of that had magic in, because it said on the back it was about a magical battle. Oh my god, which one was it? Hopefully I'll check in with you from the future. Oh, that's so bad. I might try and fit this in, but it's not looking likely if it's not the one I want. Oh, that's frustrating. Anyway, which one would it be? So it's a little bit later on, but basically I've decided for the magic battle prompt I'm going to read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling. Whilst this doesn't necessarily have a magical battle, it does have the magic jewel or the jewel club, and therefore I feel like it should fit. I am like halfway through rereading the first book, and I'll just finish reading it now that I know that I want to read the sequel for this readathon. So yeah, hopefully that'll fit. And if you don't know what this is about, this is Harry Potter's second year at Hogwarts. He has returned much to his delight, and some evil creature has, well, he thinks it's an evil creature, some evil force has appeared and keeps nearly killing people, and obviously that's not good. So I should be reading that, and hopefully I'll read the illustrated edition because that's what I was doing with the first one. It's now the day after I filmed my TBR. I am reporting kind of post having put a poll up on Twitter and Instagram to see whether you lot think I should have read The Shadow Queen or The Chamber of Secrets for the Magic Battle prompt. Fortunately, you lot are as indecisive as me. It was split one way from Instagram and the other way from Twitter, and therefore I've actually decided to read a different book altogether. As soon as I mentioned to Sam about a magical battle, he said, oh, you should read the Sandman Slim books. So I'm not going to give you a summary now because I actually have no idea what they're about. I don't even know who they're by, but he said they're a really underhyped book. I think he said I think we've covered them in a video before. I think he said they were like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but Spike as the main character. I haven't watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that's me checking in to say that's my plan. I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. The last one on my witch's path is with occult themes, so tarot cards, magic, witchcraft, that kind of stuff. So if it's anything witchy, you can probably include it. I am including These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. I have this on my Kindle, and it's also a sapphic magical witchy thing, and it sounds great. I don't really know what it's about. Other than that, maybe there are lesbians at school and they're having a secret coven. I don't know, I've just heard good things about it. When I saw it was on offer and it would like fit this theme, I just thought I kind of had to snap it up. So the other books I might read if I had the time include We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Magia. This is an LGBT plus book about a woman who secretly is a rebel and is trying to infiltrate the bad guys, rich people's world, and falls in love with his wife, but she's also a wife. Don't quite know, but it sounds great. Also hoping to read The Queen of Coin and Whispers by Helen Corcoran. I have pre-ordered this and it should be released on the 1st of June, so I could, if Matilda fails me, read that as the Queen prompt, but I didn't want to push it just in case it didn't turn up in time. I also want to read On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden, because also sapphic sci-fi graphic novel, so it should be quite quick to read. As you may notice, there's a theme. I want to read all these LGBT plus books because of the month, but I couldn't think of a way to fit them on my TBR. I was going to fit Queen of Coin and Whispers as my foiled cover, but I also wanted to fit Ash. I wonder if Ash would be a magical battle. I'm so frustrated by that one. I would also quite like to read Dark, which is the 6th book in the Septimus Heap series, because I need to read that one so I can read the final one, but now I'm getting closer to reading the final one. I don't want to do it again, which is exactly my problem I had in the first place. So the girl my character falls in love with is disguised as a guy for most of her life, and not necessarily disguised as a guy, but she was just picked up as a guy and just never corrected them. And so I would quite like her to follow some on the night path and potentially courtier, because that's kind of what she is. She's the prince's best friend. I think the characters are also going to go on a quest across the water and meet some sirens or some mer people. I haven't decided. I haven't done a lot of research, or I haven't done as much research as I would have done if this was like a fully fledged story, which hopefully maybe will be in the future, and this is just a way for me to like explore it. So I might also see some pirate paths and to explore the prophecy that has been mistold over time. I will hopefully go and meet an oracle, but I don't know how much time I've got. We will see. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing if you're not already. Comment down below if you're planning on joining in, if you've read any of these books, or if you're also hoping to read any of these books. Let me know if you're following the same path as me, if you are interested by my story, if you like the animation I did, if you want to write a short story, just come and talk at me and I will be happy to join in and answer any questions you have and have a conversation with you. I will link all the information about the readathon and the Discord chat and the short story competitions and anything you might want to know. I will link it in the description. I will see you in the next video. Bye!